I think we've grown by like 80% this year is what it will end up working out to. So it's a big year for us at Big Money. And all of our clients personally, I love hearing all the wins of the trips and gifting and all those things. So if you're going back and reflecting and you're writing these things down, try to amplify in 2026 the moments that you feel like went really well. How can I do more of that in 2026? And, just think of the moments and feelings that you had throughout the year, wherever you were, whenever you had the best moments. If you didn't have a good moment, do less of that. Welcome to the show. This is the Build Big, Live Bigger podcast. This is where you get real clarity about retirement so you can build a plan that blesses your life instead of becoming it. We'll share what you need to hear to replace worry with confidence, protect what you've built, and actually live your dreams, not your fears in retirement. Let's dive in. My name is Johnathan Burgess. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Luke Maloney-Grimes. So today what we're going to talk about is planning for 2026. So really we want to reflect on 2025 and talk about some things that you can do as you're moving into 2026. How can you get the most out of your retirement this year, or even if you're planning for retirement? But if you're retired already, this is going to be a great podcast episode. Same way if you're not, it's going to be good for some planning concepts that we're going to talk about. And this should drop a week before Christmas. And Christmas, I don't know about you, Luke, but it's my favorite holiday out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people seem to be in a better mood around Christmas, 100%. So I've always been a huge fan of Christmas. I know growing up in a very Christian home, my grandfather was a pastor, and younger brother's a pastor. It was always a big part of what we did. So just all the holiday traditions and everything. I grew up in a really big family, so we had like 40 people over for Christmas at my grandparents' house. So it was always nuts. It was always something that I really looked forward to. So, so the first topic we want to hit on is 2025 in the rear view. So why did you pick that as the topic, Luke?
I think in general, this is a point in time, like going into the new year, Christmas, New Year. It's a good time to reflect because we're going into a totally new time, a whole new year. It's like for most people, it's like the opportunity to, think about what has happened, what went right, what didn't go right for the past year. And now we have a fresh start, or at least most people feel that way. It's a good time to really think and reflect. And what do I want to change and what could I improve? So it's a turning point for most people.
Yeah, I love the concept of reflecting because there's a really good book that I read early on in my entrepreneurial journey, but it was called The Gap and the Gain. Mm-hmm. And, you can always think about, what if I had this? What if I had that? But you never look back and see how far you've come. And so I think reflecting back on 2025, some of the good concepts are, what were some of my favorite moments throughout the year? What were some things that went really well? What were some things that didn't go well? Samantha and I actually have this tradition at the beginning of every year or end of every year. It's either right before New Year's or right after the beginning of the year. We'll actually sit down by a fire. We've done this every year. We'll sit down by a fire and we'll talk about all the things that went great, and then all the things that didn't go great. We write them down and then we throw them in the fire.
Love that.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we've always done as a couple, to reflect on the good things and really, cherish those moments. And then anything that went bad throughout the year, we're like, okay, write it down, throw it in the fire. It's over. It's done with.
I've actually done that before as well. Like things, for instance, that I want to let go of that maybe I've been holding on to, or, things of the past that I want to be able to move on from. I've done that before, like burning it, essentially writing it down, clarifying, what it is, why you felt that way, and then releasing it. So I really like that idea.
And I think another thing is, whenever you look back on the year, obviously this has been a good year in the market. So, looking back, saying, where was I at the beginning of the year with my assets? Where am I at the end of this year? From a financial standpoint, if you're already retired, where did I start with my balances at the beginning of the year? And where am I at with my balances now at the end of the year? A good checkpoint would be if the stock market's been up and you have less money than what you started with, then maybe your spending was too high. So that's something you definitely want to address. But for most people who have a good, prudent retirement planner or fiduciary advisor, they've taken money out and their balances have grown this year. So I think 2025 for us internally was a really strong year for our clients as I look back. So going through and saying, okay, how did I win this year? Because the markets aren't always going to be like they have been.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think also looking back on wins and what you're proud of as well, I think it's so awesome and important to do that because even we internally talk about, what have we achieved this year? And it kind of reminds you, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you moving forward? What are your goals? But it's good to look back on what you've achieved because it feels great. And usually, over time, you don't quite realize it that those big changes that you do make, but a lot of people have achieved a lot this year with the right plans in place. They've really achieved a lot. So all of our clients and our team should be very proud of that.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think we've grown by like 80% this year is what it will end up working out to. So it's a big year for us at Big Money, and all of our clients personally. I love hearing all the wins of the trips and gifting and all those things. So if you're going back and reflecting and you're writing these things down, try to amplify in 2026 the moments that you feel like went really well. How can I do more of that in 2026? And, just think of the moments and feelings that you had throughout the year, wherever you were, whenever you had the best moments, do more of that. And wherever you were, if you didn't have a good moment, do less of that.
I had a question for you, like since, there's the two sides we are thinking about, what have clients achieved, but also us and what we've achieved at the company. Like what do you feel like what are your lessons and what do you think you feel good about this year, in 2025, like looking back?
I would say our talent acquisition. If I look back, obviously the numbers have grown and that's really easy to look back and say, it's static, right? You can see the numbers and you can see the numbers from this year to last year, how much we've grown. But for me, it's the depth of talent that we have on the team now. And I think you and I were actually working on something yesterday for a new client. And, he called about something and we had to do a fundamental analysis of I think he had like 80 holdings. And, you taught AP, another one of our team members, how to do that same thing. But whenever I look at that, I mean, that's just one example, but the depth of talent and not only bringing on good talent, but our existing team growing and developing over the last year to me. And then geographically we grew, right? So, we went from 3 locations to 4. The fourth was 3 hours away. So it's been a blessing and a little bit of a challenge also at the same time. So, that's pushed me personally. I think another thing that I look back on is just the enthusiasm we have from all the households that we serve, like going into reviews and everyone being as happy as they are. I think, maybe, and I might actually be overstating this. Maybe for every 100 positive interactions I had 1 negative. And I think I'm overstating that. It just, internally and externally with our clients, the overall sentiment of how we're growing and still producing that great client experience.
Yeah, I agree. And the sentiment is pretty amazing. Like even tonight, we're going to have that Wine and Wisdom event.
Yeah.
How many clients are coming? Like what, 180?
Yeah, it's somewhere around 200. But
yeah,
another thing is the sheer number of clients who were I would say our referral rate has gone up a lot this year. So, the introductions that we've gotten to new families, actually, I've gotten so many in the last week. I've kind of had to push some of them out 2 weeks. But that number of, clients telling other folks about something that's seemingly sensitive, right? To me, it's faith, family, and finances are the 3 closest things in somebody's life. And I don't know even how, I haven't been in many conversations organically where that's been brought up. So I think the fact that, people are doing really, really well with us, and I think they feel this sense of peace, that, they know what the portfolio is going to do in a good time and in a bad time. And they're sharing that peace of mind with others. I would say that's been a big thing it's kind of like the snowball effect, right? So in the beginning, a few people would be told about us, but the sheer number of, I think it's almost every day we're like, okay, yeah, we go over the calendar and at least one family that's coming in was referred by another family that we already worked for.
Mhm.
So, it's one thing for people to have good sentiment, but then to go out and tell other people about it, that's been really exciting as well.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's really probably one of the biggest signs of like a company that does the right thing and does it well, because ultimately the referrals, that is success for us, but obviously that is just proof that we're doing the right thing and we're providing that value and doing a very good job. So
Yeah. So I wanted to give you another, I guess you could call it hack for this year. It's something that Samantha and I do. So going back to the, fire example, we talk about the good things and throw away the bad things. One thing that we have done every year is we write out our travel calendar for the year. So we pre-plan the entire year, and our rule is, we want to go every 2 months. So whatever your frequency wants to be, whether that's once every 3 months, twice a year, maybe more. Our retirees, I think, travel more than I do, but we plan at least to go every 2 months.
that's a great idea, planning that ahead, because you'll get better rates as well. Like,
Yeah.
and now you get better prices.
And the other thing is it gives us something to look forward to
Mhm.
throughout the year. So I know a ton of clients that we work for, they travel. And to me, the best thing is to go in and say, okay, what are our favorite trips, that we've been on? And then we go and we try to duplicate those, and we make them a little bit different. Like if we want to go to a ski destination, Samantha doesn't ski. She shops. Uh, but if we go to a ski destination, we're like, okay, we're somewhere that we've been. Can we go somewhere kind of adjacent to that, that's similar in nature? So if we really liked, for instance, Aspen, maybe we go to Telluride the following year. If we really liked a certain area, in Florida, maybe we'll go to a different city that's close to that,
Mhm.
Florida, but creating some variability in there. And then we've got our staple trips that we like to go on every year. And, we've got one hotel we love to go to, and we plan to go there, 3 times next year because we know how the experience is going to be. So even if the other ones aren't good,
Mhm.
we know we've got those staple trips built in. But our rule is the last day of every trip, we actually book the next trip.
I like
So,
that.
so we'll finish one trip and then we'll turn around and we'll book the next one the last day. So we already have it pre-planned, but we go ahead and take that action because it's really easy to get busy and to, have the trip on the calendar, and then you get a month out and you're like, oh, well, we've got all this stuff going on. Um, Plus with our calendars, I think it's impossible for me not to have that planned
Mhm.
throughout the year. I have to have that blocked off, especially for our client event we have this evening. I have to plan around those things. So, if you're a retiree, get a huge calendar, like literally go out and I get one from Jesse Itzler, is the guy. So he sends it. I'm literally looking at it right now. But it shows the entire year, and we go in and periodically I'll X off all the days so we know what's coming up. But that's one thing that we love to do is plan out our travel for the year. And I've done that for a lot of our clients. I've actually gifted them the same calendar that Samantha and I use.
That's awesome. I love that. And that's what makes life great, like the trips, the experiences that you have, you're not buying something necessarily that you're going to hold on to like physically, but those are experiences that you can take with you for a long time. Like those memories, it's definitely not a waste in any way. Like that is a great investment in your happiness. So I love that.
Yeah. Another thing is, if you're planning throughout the year, I think a good thing to plan is gifting throughout the year. And that's both charitable and to your family. So, whatever charitable gifting you want to do throughout the year, Samantha and I always set a annual gifting goal that we want to give a certain amount to churches or charities. And, that's a really good accountability number.
If retirement clarity matters to you, don't wait. Text BOOK to 864-920-3155 or click the link in the description below to get a free copy of Jonathan's book, Retire Right.
We know if we get towards the end of the year, like this year, we know we have a certain number that we want to hit, and we'll go back and we'll review that. But the other thing is gifting to your family. So, going back to the travel thing, some of these trips, do I want to take my kids and my grandkids? on these trips with me, or do I just want to go with my spouse? And beyond travel, gifting physical items throughout the year or cash. If there's a family member, like you have a grandchild that just graduated high school or graduated college, what am I planning on giving them? Which is why I love that huge calendar. Like you can put Johnny's graduation on there in May, and you can know, okay, Samantha has a really good rule. She said if it's not gifted a month in advance, it's not a good gift. Like you haven't really thought about it. So she likes to buy gifts a month ahead of time, which is why we have an ungodly amount of Amazon boxes at our house. But that is something that is a really good idea if you have, family events that are happening throughout the year. You're able to go in and gift that person a month prior. That way you can really, think about what it is that you want to give them, whether that's a physical item or you want to gift them a certain amount of money. And it is the end of the year. So you can gift, each child, you can gift them $18,000. So, and they don't have to pay taxes on that money. You don't get a tax write-off for it, but they don't get taxed on that money. So, if you've got a family member that's got a significant thing coming up in the near future, it's a good idea to gift them that before the end of the year.
Yeah, totally. And that comes into legacy planning too. Like if you can, if you truly want to gift, ultimately this money is going to probably go to your kids or your beneficiaries. You can gift throughout your lifetime as well. That way you can actually have control over how this money goes, to your beneficiaries and when it goes to them and how you want to see that through. So like that is something you can definitely take control of while you're alive.
Yeah. And you can do that. You can just give them, money. You can write them a check, or you can do something if you have a younger child that's involved in gifting. You can do something like an UGMA where, you invest money on their behalf and you let them know, hey, I just made a $10,000 deposit into your UGMA account and I bought stocks for you. And at 18, you have access to that money, but you grow and invest for them for their future.
Yeah, I love that too, because like it's one thing to gift stuff like things, whatever it may be, trips, items, things like that. But also, keeping in mind that if you want to invest in their future, getting that money potentially invested, that's a great idea. And like, for instance, if you're younger than 18, you can gift to them using an UGMA. You can invest in stocks, bonds, which is great to give them a head start because like we know, like the compounding effect it's one of the 8 wonders of the world, right? That's what Einstein said. So if you could start 10 years earlier or 20 years earlier than most people starting to save and invest, it's going to multiply that money so much more. So like an UGMA, great example of an account you can give to for your kids that are younger than 18. Over that, you could put it into a regular brokerage account for them. And if they have earned income, you can actually help them with a Roth IRA as well, which is personally, it really is one of the best things to get into as soon as possible because it's, once you get that money in there, you're paying tax now, but then it's a tax advantaged account. It can grow tax free for the rest of their lives, which is going to set them ahead a whole lot. So things to think about.
Yeah. The other thing too is if they're 10 years old and you put money into an UGMA, let's say you put $10,000 into it and you set up the right portfolio, maybe where it's 100% growth, that's slightly aggressive, and let's say it makes 10% per year. Well, in 7 years, that money would, or 7.2 to be exact, but 7 years, that money would have doubled. So the 10 grand that you would have given them now when they're 17 is now 20 grand. So, compounding interest definitely will work in their favor. And that's the time that, they may need that money. They're going off to college, right? They're able to furnish their dorm room. Maybe they, at 17, you're a grandparent and the parents gave them a car that's worth $5,000. And you're like, well, they're going 2 hours away to college. So I don't know if that $5,000 car is going to confidently get my grandchild from point A to point B. So then they take money out of that account and they go and they buy a much more reliable vehicle. So, it could be at a moment that they really want it. Now, the grandchild may not be enthused about, oh, yeah, that's cool. I got a $10,000 stock account if they're 10 years old.
Well, most of them wouldn't be that excited.
Yeah. Maybe you gift it with a Nintendo, right? but I put money in your stock account. You don't even have to tell them the amount, but that's something that's really easy for any advisor to do. I think it takes us like 15 minutes to open an account like that. So, don't just think about the gifting now, think about what it could be in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I love that.
So we're by the time this airs, we're going to be a week before Christmas. So a couple things to keep in mind: RMDs. If you're coming to year end, make sure that you have taken your RMD by the end of the year. I know that we have an RMD spreadsheet that we go through every year for all of our clients. But if you're listening to this right now and you have not taken your RMD, make sure you do that, because there's a 25% penalty on that money if you do not take it out this year. Also, you can do QCDs before the end of the year. So you can gift to a church or charity through your IRA and not have to pay any income taxes on that. So that's a really good idea for those who don't itemize, which is most people now, that the standard deduction is $30,000. And then I would say generally, now it's crunch time. If you wanted to do a Roth conversion, if you're listening to this right now, you're borderline coming up on, if you have the idea, it's great, but processing times at, financial institutions at the end of the year are a little bit slower. So if you wanted to do a Roth conversion, it should be something that you talk to your advisor about at the latest today. And even with it happening while you're listening to this, there's a chance that it could not be done. So you would want to make sure that it's within the processing time to actually get that done before the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to promise when you're that close to the wire, because ultimately everyone's trying to get in and processing times can vary. So it's good to be aware of. And also DAFs, or donor advised funds. If you do want to, write off some money or write off some income for tax purposes, donor advised funds are another option too. So, you can't write off, I think it's about 60% of your AGI if with cash. If you're donating securities like stocks, it's about 30% of your AGI. So that can be written off.
Awesome. Last thing I want to bring up here, if you are working at an employer right now, you should do an audit of your financials before the end of the year. So if you have a workplace 401k, by default, you're going to be invested in something called a target date fund, and you need to take a good look at that before year end. We're going into a new financial year. The stock markets are at an all-time high, or the stock market in general is at an all-time high. So if you have, some positions maybe that are too aggressive, you need to look at that. The other thing is, if you have a target date fund, it's probably largely invested in bonds. If you're listening to this, for the most part, you're probably over 50 years old. And the Fed is leaning towards lowering interest rates, but if it's anything like inflation back in the 70s, they could very well increase interest rates and those bond funds will go down. So take a good look at your financial allocation. Make sure you talk to a qualified retirement professional around investment allocation. It's going to be the number one way that you're able to achieve your goals in retirement if you're correctly allocated. If you're not, it could be one of the biggest hiccups that you have in your entire portfolio. If 2022 taught us anything, stocks and bonds went down at the same time. We're going on a 3.5 year bull market. The average bull market lasts 3.2 years. So it's definitely something that you want to be aware of. If you're looking at your portfolio, make sure that you're correctly positioned based on your personal goals. And the best person to talk to about something like that is a qualified financial professional. So even if you can't move it over and you're under 59 and a half, that's the golden number where you can get access to everything. If you're under 59 and a half, you should still look at it, because there are definitely some options within your 401k that may be better than what you're currently invested in. So, all right, Luke, that wraps episode 18. This was 18 or 19?
I think it's 19.
19. This wraps episode 19. It was a short one today. I know we've got the client event this evening, so we got the whole crew prepping for that tonight. Going to get to see a lot of great clients. And as always, if you're listening to this, I commend you. You are taking the right steps towards your financial future. Consuming content like this is the best way to learn and grow in your financial life. And always have that white belt mentality. Day one, learn as much as you possibly can. And Luke, last thing I'm going to leave on, because both you and I read a lot. Mm-hmm. So what is your best financial book that you have read in 2025, and it cannot be my book.
What I Learned About Investing from Darwin by Pollock Brazard. And I know that it's a quite a in-depth technical type of investment book, but personally that was my favorite. I read it when I was in Mexico on a trip with my family, and it was honestly incredible. It's just about finding really fantastic companies to invest in, really, and how this guy has achieved such amazing success with that. So yeah, that was probably my favorite. Not the most relatable to lots of people, but for me, that was like the most awesome book this year.
Awesome. Mine would have been The Holy Grail of Investing. I went back and reread that. I actually read it in 2024, but I think I've read it 3 times at this point. But The Holy Grail of Investing by Tony Robbins, great book. It borders outside of traditional stock market investing and really looks deeply into alternative investments. So that's something personally that I have implemented a lot in 2025. So The Holy Grail of Investing definitely was my favorite read. So if you're someone who has saved over $1 million, definitely give that a read. It is worth your time in spades. If you're close to being worth $1 million liquid, that's excluding your house, because these strategies don't come into play until you hit that number. If you've saved 800,000 or 900,000, great book to read, and really talks about how to make money in any market cycle, which is a phenomenal thing for a retiree. So
awesome. That's a great recommendation.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to this episode, and we will catch you on the next one.